Hello and welcome to Ask the Accountant. We have cool friends, and today we have a 2 for the price of 1, I'd like to say.
Value deal.
That's what I like
Definitely.
to say. Yeah. So not only do we have cool friends, but we have 2 of them, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Nick, Tush, go for it. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, you Tush, after you.
Hey guys, my name's Tush Patel. One of the co-founders here at Capium. Really looking forward to today. Sitting here in this nice, cool room as well.
Hi, I'm Nick Cheney. I've been at Capium for the past 6 years. My relationship with Tush has lasted longer than that, but it's great to be interviewed by 2 familiar faces.
Awesome.
Hope they're kind.
We are definitely.
Always.
Well, the whole point is cool friends, right? So I think we definitely want to talk about you 2 individually in terms of how you got to where you are, career, that sort of thing. But so people give a bit of an understanding what is Capium and why they should be interested in it. We'll definitely talk into more detail later down the line, but just give it a brief overview of if you were pitching it to someone now, what is Capium?
All right, do you want me to go ahead with that?
You're the founder.
No, co-founder. So the idea of Capium is it's an ecosystem with a cloud suite of products which are targeted towards accountants in practice to try and really streamline their processes and effectively reduce their pain barrier with their clients. So we provide everything from bookkeeping, payroll, final accounts, taxes, tax preparation, practice management, and actually I think we're on the cusp of releasing cloud charity accounts today, Monday, something along those lines.
Soon.
And a few more things over the next couple of weeks. And the idea there is whatever an accountant does, they should be able to do it and collaborate with their customers and staff directly through the platform.
Love it. And we users of the product itself. I mean, I was trying to think when I started using it. It's 10 years plus, but I don't know quite.
Thing.
Yeah.
I think it was back in 2014.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, 9 years, but yeah.
Before my time.
It was crazy. Yeah, crazy.
I signed Aaron up, I remember.
It was because it wasn't. For anyone who know, I've got multiple accounting firms, and it was one back then called WPC Accounting Limited.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're trying to steal a well-prominent known accounting firm. We're trying to steal their funder, but yeah, it didn't work as it should have done. Anyway, back. It's all about you guys. So, right, we have cool friends. Why are you guys in where you are now? How did you get to the position? Give us a story. Give us the breakdown. What's made you come to the point where you are now, where co-founder, and I mean you're part of the furniture, Nick. Let's be honest.
I guess it's probably a bit more about going into life's experiences than really. I'm sure we're going to cover it after, but first acquisition on my first company, I sat down with my co-founder as well, who had actually helped me build the business up previously, and what happened was we were sitting with our accountant, my accountant at the time, and saw literally he had one thing for bookkeeping, another thing for accounts prep, and payroll was one thing. I don't even want to get onto practice management. Back then, it was just like an Excel.
If they're lucky.
Yeah.
If not a Rolodex.
I won't name names. It was a franchise, but the idea there was it just seemed very, very clunky. And coming from a sort of semi-tech world before, it just seemed like, what are you doing here? You were taking one thing from here and then putting it into there. And then I started to think, you're charging us all this amount of money, right? But actually, it's so archaic in the way you're doing it. And that's where our money's being spent, really, is your time and effort that was going through this. So it was more or less just a conversation that we're having around the table and said, look, wouldn't it be better if you could do this directly in the cloud environment? At that point, he didn't know what cloud was.
It was a fad, wasn't it?
Totally.
That's what Sage said.
Yeah. We then got onto the topic about, I won't go comment on that one. We then got onto the topic about where's my data held? I want to see it here in the office. And as soon as we said, well, no, it sits on a server hosted by XYZ. Because at the time, we didn't even have, Capium wasn't even formed.
Yeah.
So it was just a complete no-no. He said, I don't want it. I wouldn't even think about it. You guys are crazy, et cetera, et cetera. So we then came back, I think it must have been about 6 months later, with sort of like a vision and a prototype of what it would look like, an MVP. He kind of semi-believed it, but he just, I think the exact words were, "You're not going to get far. Sage is going to swallow it up." Yeah, and quote unquote, it was just like they're just going to bulldoze you and then just get it done. So wasn't the greatest of confidence that I got out of it, but we just carried on. So Sanjay and I carried on, and then we went to Accountex was the first 2013, and we just saw like QuickBooks, Xero, and all we had at the time was payroll and bookkeeping that was semi sort of complete, and we were like, we just can't go into the market with this. They're doing a better job, they're bigger, faster, better, and infinite amount of money behind it. So then we really looked at it and said, well, actually, what we're trying to solve was not really that aspect. It was more for the accountant. And so it then drove the accounts production, it then drove the tax aspects, tax preparation aspects, and then that's kind of when we were about to go into the market. Got approached by John Stockdyke, it was, RIP, bless his soul, who found us through the big wide web, and phoned us up and said, "Who the hell are you? Where have you come from?" And before you know it, there was an editorial that was done about us. And that's kind of where the acceleration path of interest started to come from. Were we ready for it back then? I don't think we were, truth be told. But actually, it helps us to sort of like push on and sort of perfect the areas that, at the time we thought were not working properly as well. So over that period, must have been 2015, I think it was. We started to win customers who believed in the vision of what we were doing, and said, worked with us. So it was a select group of people in London. And I think it was yourself as well, Aaron, that, signed up at that time as well. So we worked with obviously the likes of yourselves and what have you to see where we can progress on to next. And it was still a small team. We self-invested everything up until that point. My wife wasn't happy. I still think she's not happy. But the idea there was we took it to a point before we went out to investors to say, look, if this isn't a product where we've got traction, we've put our own personal money into it and sweat and equity into it, then I don't know what is. And that's really what drove the business forward after. I don't want to labour the point. I think there was one point in time where we were close to basically we burnt all of our cash. And we had to kind of sit down, rethink our strategy. We were probably about a month away from going under. And we just there was two options, either go out and raise investment or B, just sell. And at the time it was sell on an annual basis instead of offering monthly aspects. Because we were signing up about 20 customers a month, roughly. And literally from March 15 to April, May, June, July, all the way through, that's the story that I told our investors who signed up at the time, that we didn't have any money and this is what's got us through. Just continuously selling. And if that's not a story to tell you around the table, I don't know what is. That there's actually something there that people believe in.
I think that's really poignant at the moment, because in the last year, we've seen a lot of startup tech solutions in the industry run out of roadway.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time they've spent more time keeping investors happy and trying to get new investors than they actually have selling their own product. And you have two options. You get investors or you sell. So the fact that you guys went, well, we can do both to a degree, but the quicker cash is going to come in from the selling.
The thing is, you never know, Johann, when you're sitting around until the cash lands.
Yeah.
At the 11th hour, somebody can still turn around and, bring something up in your terms or et cetera, et cetera. Until it's landed in the bank account, you never know.
Yeah.
So why were we going to go down that road on the premise that destiny was in our own control? And so we kind of took that route that if we were going to go under, God forbid, then, at least we tried. Fighting, really.
Self-fulfilling prophecy as well, isn't it? If you can sell your product and you can continue to show that it's sellable, then more investors are going to be interested, right? So, it was the right call. Nick, what about yourself? What's your story? How did you get to, again, part of the furniture at Capium?
So I don't really have that many connections with accountancy, apart from my mum was an accountant. And that gave me a negative experience of accountancy. Because as you can imagine, the control on your pocket money was quite tight.
She didn't have you doing T ledgers on your own pocket money, did she?
I remember when I went to university, I made it abundantly clear that I wanted to disentangle from her kind of grasp because she was very controlling, and I get it. You know, she was a daughter of an immigrant who came over from Italy in the 1950s. So money was something that always they worked hard for. But me being third generation growing up, I wanted just to spend and live a little. So I broke away from that. But the story of how me and Tush met really comes from his first business, was PPR Solutions. I graduated from uni, did classic, went away traveling 3-4 months, and I was working at Balfour Beatty for about 6 months. Not that exciting, but it's installation of water meters in the southeast because it's a water stressed area. I remember it well. And then from there, I moved back to London, and then someone from Tush's team reached out to me. PPR got sold after about 18 months I was there. And then I went to work for a bank doing IT project management, but we still kept quite close contact with the guys. I saw a couple of our other colleagues, and I remember them in their workspace, and Tush being in the corner working away on this kind of secret project. Again, I went traveling again. I was kind of going through
Thailand, weren't you?
Yeah, I did America. I did as many places as possible. I think that was my kind of like, why am I working? What am I doing? Really, you know. I came back, and I think I was in the UK for a few weeks. I was going for another banking job. Asked Tush for a reference, and he kind of hooked me in. And haven't really looked back from there. You know, so fast forward nearly 6.5 years, we find ourselves here with you guys, really. And to say it's been a journey is saying the least. Like, we've probably had blood, sweat, tears, hugs. Just as much conflict as, you know, husband and wife does have. But I think we often do. Well, we try to do it more, just pinch ourselves a little bit to be like, we've actually got this far. You know, as you were saying earlier, so many companies run out of money, or that statistic that how many companies actually don't make it through their first year. And, you know, we're on the cusp of nearly 2,000 accountants using us. You know, so it's a great journey. And when I first started at Capium, a lot of the kind of conversations we were having was about credibility. Who are we? You know, are we viable? And that was really tough kind of to get over that initial hurdle. But now it's more about, we love what you're doing. Like, you know, but I need you to do more. You know, can you do more? And, you know, I'm like, Tush, let me do more. Go shake down those investors more. And, you know, I think 18 months ago, I think that's where we had our real first, like, major break, where we did receive a decent amount of investment. And this is where we're on the cusp of these new product launches, which is like the beginning of, you know, a new world. Before we were fighting to exist, now we're fighting to grow. And that's a completely different challenge and obstacles to have. So, yeah, that's my story to date.
Love it.
What you guys did, so 2015, right? It's still very much out there, the same kind of landscape for accounts and tax production as it was then. Like, you guys came along and did cloud-based accounts and tax return at a time when I think the only other player was TaxFiler. Like, no one else did proper cloud accounting.
Yeah, I mean, there was
Others claim to do it.
Whatever it was called, NOMI before. What was it called?
No,
Numisma.
No, they only came in the market in the last 2 or 3 years.
No, they were around.
Were they?
Yeah, but they didn't actually push on.
Right.
I think there was a decision that was taken internally to offer it internally to Summit's current franchises, for example. And then after that, I think they've then opened up externally.
So it's only in the last year or two, 2 or 3 years to be fair to them, that I've seen them on the market again.
And I think they're trying a bit harder.
Yeah, but like, it's always baffled me that bookkeeping
Yeah. Well, originally they wanted the hybrid approach, didn't they?
Yeah. But like, no one, like, tax calc and stuff, they all said, "Oh, we're cloud based." It's like, no, you're not. You've got a link to a server remotely. That's not. I want to be able to access you on a web browser. That's cloud based, in my opinion. But why? Like payroll as well. They were incredibly slow to go cloud based. It's only in the last 3 years that we've seen a big push towards cloud.
And some of them pulled it back, haven't they?
Yeah, and it's not gone well for some of the biggest names in the market. But why? Am I completely oversimplifying this by saying, why is it so much more difficult to do accounts and tax production on a web browser in the true cloud than on a bit of software on my laptop?
Do you know, firstly, it really bugs me. And we're in a cool friends room, so I can say it, when it's a hybrid platform, but it's called cloud. So I've put that out there. It's Friday and it's Friday fun. But on the flip side, it's not difficult. Well, it is difficult, clearly, because we're blood, sweat and tears, as Nick says. But I can understand and I can empathise with a lot of the big players in the market where you've built up a community on a architecture, right, which effectively you've now built. You started on a bungalow, for example, and then now you've got an extension on top, and now you've basically gone wider, etc. And so you've created a mansion, and now you've got 50,000 people living in it. Okay, trying to rehouse them in the same environment that they've been used to for so long, with features that potentially they may not have, that they've been used to and accustomed to for the last 20 years, for example. That scares people. That can scare people as a vendor. So I get it. And I suppose we were fortunate enough where, yes, we were a new player, so we didn't have any legacy historic issues in order to do that. Do we face that now? I think with our new environment coming out, Aaron, I know you've been sort of part of that with the charities aspect, but then we're doing it with the bookkeeping. And those are the kind of questions and, permutations that we start thinking about is how are we going to do it without affecting or upsetting our current customer base, for example. So I do empathise with the larger vendors out there with regards to doing it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's obviously not as simple as we thought it was, but it's just frustrating when they, as you say, the hybrid approach gets branded as cloud.
I mean, we've seen two big shifts in it, haven't we, into lately? We've had a legacy product, BTC, decide to go cloud. My opinion, I feel like they've just gone, well, everyone loved our software on desktop. Let's just replicate it. And all that's doing is basically alienating anyone who didn't like the software that was on there. And then you've got people like QuickBooks going, right, let's just, and Xero, just build a new one. Obviously, nowhere near the complexity that you guys built almost 10 years ago now, right? And it just seems like it's really difficult for them to find that right niche, right approach to it. Either they're trying to replicate something that was already outdated, or they're trying to build something and then realizing how complicated it is and just not giving the features that we need to service our clients.
Yeah, the tough thing comes from delivering the product, right? If you have a customer base that expects a certain spectrum of features, but you're going to try and deliver the product in iterations, when do you expose your customer base to that initial product? Because the first thing the customers will say is, it doesn't do this. It's not like that. This is missing. And I think, where do you begin? I think some of these legacy platforms are releasing products that just have their MVPs, but then from what I hear, that's just alienating their customers because it's missing the extra bits, the fluffy bits that they like or they got accustomed to.
Or they need to provide the service.
Yeah, correct, right, which they built into their own internal process. What we've been able to do is we had that bedrock and we're able to add and add and add, and we're already in the cloud. But I'd like to go back to one of your earlier points where you said Sage was saying it's a fad. When I first started, I think all major vendors were ignoring cloud. It was cloud was just like and I think that's because they obviously had their customers who had their revenue stream. If it's not broken, why fix it? Yep. But then obviously the pandemic, I think, has significantly changed that. The resource issue that accountants are having with hiring staff and the flexibility and remote working and the work-life balance, which is becoming even more important. I think it's all turbocharged a trend that was slowly coming in anyway.
Yeah.
And I think this is why people are taking cloud more seriously. And yeah,
I think just to touch on that, I mean, I did a webinar, like earlier this week on it, but you can't build, if we're talking about things like machine learning and AI, okay, yes, depending on who you speak to, you're going to get a different response back. And, we're either in Terminator land, or at the end of the day, it could be happening right now at some point. You can't do that on a desktop environment. Yeah. And so really now, if we're looking at the evolution of tech going forward, you've got no choice, which is why I think most vendors are now starting to kind of like every vendor's getting into it to obviously try and get to that point, because at some point you're going to have to be looking at introducing maybe not GPT, but something else, something AI related and machine learning within to the platform, because that's what
are your thoughts on AI and Capium's future with AI and stuff? Is that something you guys have started talking about and looking at?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the whole point with that is in order for us to offer it out to other people, we need to look at where we see pain points ourselves internally.
Yeah.
If we can solve the pain points internally with ourselves, then actually we can say, okay, look, we've done that and we know it works. Here you go, guys. That's probably worth considering. So the areas that we're looking at, Nick knows, every day I'm looking at our chatbot facilities, seeing how we can look at support, not to basically replace, but it's to exactly that. So it's a case of, okay, the answers are not coming back. Okay, where are they pulling the answers from? Where is it pulling the answers from? We need to look at how we can actually enhance that and actually better that. Because from your world, the way I look at it is each department is like an extension of your body. So it's like an organ, not an organ, but a
limb.
A limb. Yeah, thanks. So if you've got all the limbs, learning how to go left to right, back to front, right side to side, etc., whether or not it then sits as AI making that decision, I don't think we're there, and I don't think we will be there for a long time. We don't know where that ball is going to bounce next. But the idea there is that is the accountant in my world, personally, where that's the decision maker. But the rest of it is, all those mundane tasks, all of that should be, pretty much automated as much as possible.
I love it. And I think you guys got a competitive advantage when it comes to AI, because one of the things we keep coming back to, it's conversation topic time and time again with AI. And yes, we're getting to see some really clever vendors out there do something a little bit different with AI, maybe do this, maybe do that. But the problem is, for vast majority of vendors out there, they can only apply AI to that small section, whatever that section is that they're doing, proposals or whatever it's going to be. With you guys, though, because you offer an ecosystem and you have the whole ecosystem there, then that's where, for me, AI is going to be far more impactful when it knows all the different, like you that analogy of limbs, yeah? So if the AI knows and can talk to all of them, then it's going to be able to offer much more in terms of actual real life impressions and give us actual stuff we can actually, as accountants, run with and actually help ultimately serve our clients better. And I feel like that's where you guys have that competitive advantage, whereas most other solutions out there, they're going to struggle to
deliver huge value.
Exactly. There'll be a buzzword for it, and they'll be able to show this and that, but it can only go so far.
Email generation. It's like, that's great, but I've still got to sit there and proofread it. So I may as well have typed it as I proofread it.
But in theory, you guys could go, right, well, let's generate an email that's spoken to the accounts production, spoken to the corporation tax module, spoken to this, and whatever you want to do with it, it's done something with it, right? And it's got that whole thing. And I feel like that's going to be huge. Hopefully AI is not the faff
no, but if it could be like the accounts like back when we had Microsoft's bloody Clippy thing, and it goes, oh, it looks like you're writing a letter. So, yes, well done, mate. But if you had that in accounts and tax production, and it can go, you've not you change. It looks like you're applying this depreciation. Last year you applied this percentage, or you've not included. Like, I know your guys' software already flags like you've got this in, but you've not put a note in about this area.
Foundations and warnings,
Like,
is correct. Yeah.
if the AI is there to enhance that feature, I can see a huge use for it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I guess really data for AI is like fuel to a fire. So it needs as much data as possible in order to make sure it gets it right.
Yeah.
Now, how can you now turn around and ensure that that data is correct when we're having continuous compliance changes that are being pushed through by budgets, Brexits, elections about to come up? It's going to throw off the data that we're putting in. So unless the data is actually pure, accurate, etc. But I think one of the areas that we're going to probably struggle with is accounts production and tax, just primarily because those are where the budget changes continuously always happen. Having said that, the other areas where they're more mundane tasks, I guess really just the receipts, etc., blah blah blah, transactions, journal entries, etc. I think that's a given. I think that's going to happen, or is happening anyway. The compliance side is going to be an interesting one and a compelling one going forward. Whoever cracks it, hopefully us.
Well, you're right. Like, so ChatGPT goes to what, September 2022 at the moment? Was it 21, 22? Now, in my mind of miracles, that means at the end of this year, end of this September, does that mean ChatGPT can go up to the end of September 2023, because we're now on 2024, and you know what I mean?
It depends what you're paying for,
Well, it does, yeah. But like the fact that whatever your AI suggests as tax codes, tax calculations, etc., you've got to have 100% confidence that it's basing it on the right year's history, and you've got to put those reassurances in for yourselves before you can roll it out to the client. So that the client can just go, that. Capium's telling me this was the tax allowance and this was the way to treat this certain aspect in that year, and I'm doing a tax return from 3 years ago because the client's been a bit useless and they've only just realised, maybe I should have done a tax return, then it is a great research tool in ChatGPT, and if that can be harnessed in Capium, then brilliant. But as you say, you've got to have the confidence that it's right. And you guys checking your product, like, right, if Johann goes in and selects 2020 to 21 as a tax return, like, you can just go, these are the tax brackets, they match what was on HMRC's website, fine. But if you're going to start pairing that with more clever things from AI, then obviously it increases the risk of mistakes.
It raises a point about, what about your PI? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're using GPT and AI to actually sort of like create your tax returns for your client, how does that sit with your insurance policies?
And our professional bodies as well, they're already really worried about it, and they can continue, right?
I just think a lot of it it's like theoretical at the moment.
Oh, it is.
Which level are accountants happy to let AI take control of their day-to-day processes? And I think that's half the battle, really. We could have one idea where we think AI could be useful, but an accountant might actually think that's giving away too much of my value or what I am and what I've trained to do. So I think it's just kind of thrashing out that balance. And I think there's going to be lots of wrong turns, I think, until there's a product that works. Because for the email aspects you were highlighting earlier, I think that's a bit of a waste of AI.
It's a bit of a novelty, isn't it?
Yeah,
that everyone's gone, we could put that in product today and be seen as responding and reacting to the market and the tech and be thought leaders. It's like, well, you're not really. I mean, so don't get me wrong, I've used ChatGPT to write template emails. Like, I wouldn't ever use it to write a response to a client's email. But if I've got like in my software, it's like we've got a template that goes out with every set of accounts. I'll go to ChatGPT. I'm dyslexic, so ChatGPT, can you write an email informing the client that these are their accounts, this is the deadline, put placeholders here for this, and this. And it comes out with a better worded email that I can copy and paste into the software as a template than I would ever write. And the responses we get from those templates is that people 9 out of 10 times haven't realised that was a template. They've kind of felt that I one of us had written that email bespokely for that person. And it's like, there's value to be had there, because the amount of automated emails that look automated, blatantly, obviously templated, it's crap. So there is a use there.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of hype around a very novel feature. And the real value is going to be when it hits bookkeeping, payroll, accounts, tax, etc.
I think, look, this is going to throw it way out as well, where, you know, just even just having this conversation about it. There's that whole piece about right now is categorized as deep fake. Okay.
Yeah.
So we can take Aaron, okay, who can sit as the virtual person having meetings and annotations and all of that, meetings that are being annotated and all of a sudden just taken behind the scenes and put straight into the file against that particular client. Now, it's picked up your voice. It's picked up what you look like. Okay. Why is it that then, you know, it cannot act as you going forward, and you've got 1,000 Aarons for 1,000 customers?
Yeah.
You know, like, so we're way off that. Don't get me wrong, but it's a case that
It's a potential, though.
it's a potential, and it is Friday afternoon, so that's why I just chucked it out there.
Yeah. So I think let's just go back to kind of the strengths of Capium and what the reason why, you know, people like
Let's
myself,
talk about what it is now rather than what we might get in the future with AI.
So the reason people like myself have stayed around so long, and especially that, I think there was one significant change. I'd love to get your thoughts of why you made that change and why it's there. Because if we look at competitors, there are some competitors that are a complete closed shop. They built this ecosystem, and you use this ecosystem, you like it or not. Yeah. I mean, at one point, CCH were so insistent that you had to use the twin field, and Iris was pushing cash flow, and it was like, if you want to use our software, then you've got to use the whole ecosystem or not, sort of thing. And I feel like the big strength for you guys, and I've said this story a lot of times, is the fact that I was asked to do a bit of consultation for a friend of ours who was going through some problems in the practice, and they were using a competitive solution, and they were budgeting like 14 hour to do this particular job. And if I took that same job, that same type of client and everything else, and I applied using Capium and using the other software we use, it was more of a 6 to 8 hours at a push job. And that's because of the efficiencies you guys bring and allowing the fact that it can talk to outside the ecosystem. So it can talk to you, as we now have to call them, FMSs. You know?
Yes, your finance management softwares.
I'm not sure that should catch on, but anyway. So you can talk to other FMSs, you can bring that data in, and you can do. And I remember you releasing that particular piece of solution, and maybe it was because people like myself were banging on the door asking for it, whatever it was. But if you looked at your model, realistically, you shouldn't have allowed anyone else in. Like that almost seems daft, right? Why would you want people not using your bookkeeping software? Yeah. But you did, and that's where the big efficiencies have come. That's where, you know, people like myself can shout about it and give those success stories and everything else. So from your point of view, how did that conversation, because was there a pushback at first? Was there why are we building a solution to push to others? Or was it a case of going, you know what, enough people have asked for this, the community wants this, let's bring it in?
I think it was.
And was there like an assessment that you could open you up to a wider market? And
I think, firstly, you got to pick your fights, you know, and I think, as Tush was saying, that, you know, when he first came to Accountex and he just had the bookkeeping and payroll solution, he was like, the vendors we were up against, you know, you didn't see it taking off. And I think as time went on, I think we realized what our strengths are, you know, what our weaknesses are. And what changed was, I think, how we proposition our products, you know, and the acceptance of, okay, our bookkeeping will never go toe to toe with QuickBooks or Xero at the moment. Maybe soon it will. Watch this space. But, you know, but then there's such a big user requirement and the necessity for bookkeeping, okay, to get that to use other products. So if we became a closed shop, it would just harm us, you know. And recently we've done the free agent integration. We are going to do Sage next as well, because understand that you guys might use QuickBooks. You might also use Xero. You might use Sage. There could be 4 or 5 different bookkeeping providers that you use. And your clients might determine which bookkeeping software you use.
Well, they do. That's the point. Yeah.
Regardless. So we can't then, if we go, actually, guys, you've got to use bookkeeping. Before you even consider the rest of the ecosystem, we've actually created a blocker for you to use our product.
Yep.
You know? So I think that was kind of the logic.
Yeah,
The thought process.
No, I agree with Nick. It was so many weeks, months, years. We've heard the same thing coming back, and after a while, it was just a case of, well, would be stupid not to at the moment. And actually, you can take that and refocus your efforts and use it as motivation to say, well, we need to improve ours. So we're going through that. You start seeing things coming out very shortly. But it shouldn't have stopped you guys. So that gateway needed to be unlocked to allow you. Because we saw many people were using the bookkeeping, but it was for the lower level, less riskier clients. You're never going to turn around and stop your customers from using whatever they wanted to do. But actually, if we stick to the mantra of what we started Capium about, to make your lives easier, that wasn't making it easier.
Yeah.
So that was the main reason.
Yeah, the way we proposition our bookkeeping now to people who are joining us, who have used us, is it's a viable alternative. In the environment or the world where people's prices for bookkeeping is going up every 3 months now, to have a free, viable alternative where your clients can access a cloud-based product, okay, and just do, and if they're, no disrespect, but a basic client, you just need to raise invoices, purchase orders, record some transactions. That's a perfect tool, and MTD ITSA is not far away. You're going to need to get, transactions or recording that data in a product somehow.
Yeah.
You're going to get kickback from lots of people. Well, they're going to say, well, actually, not only am I, as an accountant, potentially going to have to charge you more because there's quarterly reporting and additional work, but on top of that, you're going to have to pay an extra £20, £25, £30 a month for bookkeeping software.
Yeah.
And actually, what was become a bit of our weakness has become a bit of a strength. We're finding people who's just like, well, actually, the people who want to use Xero, QuickBooks and the likes can, but I have 20, 30 clients who don't use any software.
Yeah.
And this is better than not using any software at the end of the day.
And compliant.
And it pulls through.
Yeah.
Then you have the benefits of the integration into the other products. So actually, we're solving problems, and these problems are actually getting bigger for people because of mandated change by the government.
Yeah.
So, I think, we've spoke, Aaron, Johann, we know where our shortfalls are. And if only our pockets were as deep as some of our competitors, I'm sure that bookkeeping product would be a lot stronger. But what it has given us is that clearer vision of, okay, for us to take the next step, we know what we have to do, and how we need to fix it. But at the same time, when, you're a company with our ambitions and our size, you've got to know what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Got to be self-aware.
Pick your fights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, one of the, I wouldn't say confusing, but one of the things that I've maybe had mixed messages is, for you guys, if you were going to you were just going to paint a picture of your ideal accounting firm that you want to get Capium into, or maybe it's easier to say what your ideal competitor is in terms of the other vendors out there. Where do you position yourself? Because outside looking in, I see best-in-class cloud-based accounts production software. That's what I see, which then offers a tax compliance, and it's got a fine payroll solution with no issues with it whatsoever. Okay, like you said, the bookkeeping needs work, but that's there as well. You're offering this whole solution. But where do you see it? Because for me, that is a startup accountant's dream almost. Like, you've got this software, they can just get off to the ground. They've got, the opportunity to build. Or are you, do you position yourself as the Iris replacement or whatever? Where do you see yourself?
I think initially in our journey, that's exactly, our product was for, is an accountant who is perfect for SMEs, small businesses.
Yeah.
But our problem was, we were then being put in the same bracket as tax filer. And if you put in the same bracket of tax filer where they can do £25 a month for X amount of clients, for us to build and scale a business, very difficult.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult. But almost where our ideal customer has changed from is the feedback, what we've got from customers. And I want us to be a suitable tool for, accountants who are just starting up. And we have many people who have started as a small firm and has grown with us, and that's great. Yeah, but also our next stage of our journey is to be like, well, actually, if you're a medium-sized firm, you can do that through Capium as well. You've got the tools and the products. So to answer your question, we're greedy. We want multiple profiles to find what they want from us. Our aspiration is to be more viable for larger firms, but that comes with more requirements and features and development. And that's where we're slowly weaving towards.
Yeah.
And as Tush highlighted, charity accounts is coming out, I hope, on Tuesday. And we've had so many I've personally had so many conversations with accountants go, you're a full suite solution. Great. But that's almost been a bit of our undoing, because you're a full suite, but you don't have charity accounts, but you don't have time and fees. And so these have become actually, well, we're 95% there to be the perfect solution for that firm. But there's these two key ingredients that accountants have, or that accountancy firms have. And I think as you move to the accountant who has maybe 200-300 clients, they probably have a dozen or so of these niche different clients that you've got to actually, as a software vendor, provide a service for. And that's where we are of the challenge that we're trying to get to.
Yeah, totally agree. Every software has got its what I'd probably consider like an Achilles heel. We initially started for part-time sole practitioner accountants, and as I've said before, those are the guys who have helped us to get to where we have. Okay, we could not have done it without them. But in doing so, what we've also picked up along the way and attracted attention from are, let's say, the two partner firms, and then from the two partner firms, then we've gone to the 3 or 4 partner firms, and now we're starting to see the attraction from the 10 partner firms, for example, and that's basically the gradual evolution of the platform to go there. So, yes, we have always pain points. Yes, we're always arguing internally about what we need to do and bring out, but actually those discussions are healthy, and those discussions are now not about, oh, we need to bring out a journal entry feature or something. Now it's about bringing out a new module to cater for a larger firm. And that's what keeps exciting. That's what wakes you out of bed in the morning as well.
Definitely.
Question for you, because you are an ecosystem, which translates into a broad shop. That's a lot of different modules you're going to have to develop, maintain, and continue to develop. Do you feel you might have had an easier and a deeper penetration into the market if you just stuck with accounts and tax and just made that best in class? It's always a question, isn't it? We hear best in class or an ecosystem. Which one's best?
Would our lives be easier?
Yes.
Yes. But I think when you have a vision for a company, you've got to put your flag to a mast, right?
Oh, yeah.
And stand for something. And, I think in those opening calls that I have, my team has with customers, it's the same pain point Tush mentioned about multiple that is still a problem that needs to be solved.
I'm not saying that best in class is the right direction, because you could have, if we look at someone that's best in class, Xero in QuickBooks, best in class for bookkeeping, right?
Yep.
Try and what then they've got to the point where, right, bookkeeping is nailed for the most part.
Where do you go next?
Right, well, let's go do payroll, or let's go do accounts production, and they get nothing but grief for it, because what they're doing is nowhere near best in class, yet we've come to expect best in class from what they're doing. And so we assume that the next part of their module is going to be best in class.
And I think you're absolutely right. Looking back at it, if we had stuck with that mantra, then actually, of just sticking with best in class and going accounts production, corp tax, for example, that kind of defeats what we said from the start of we want to simplify the accountant's life, okay, and provide everything within an ecosystem. Okay, fine. We could have turned around and said, this is what we're looking at doing, etc.
APIs would help slightly, but it's still not the...
But actually, looking back now, the amount of effort that we've taken and sweat and investment, etc., to get to where we have. Okay, you know, and I have to mention here, we've leveraged upon an India team, which we own, we created. We had to go through an absolute amount of pain, to create the company in the first place. And create and hire and the culture there. And so we just talk about the UK, but there's a whole different department and, you know, an entity over there. The only reason and way that we could have done this was because we leveraged upon our India team in order to be able to do this, because there's no way we could have offered it out halfway of what we can. Or, for example, the amount of people that we have in our India team, there's no way we could have that in the UK to build out what we have.
They're the unsung heroes, really, you know, the backbone of what Capium does. And it's something that, we're proud of, you know. It's fun.
I've got a team in Sri Lanka, and they are phenomenal. I could not deliver the level of client service and the broad range of services that we deliver if it wasn't for that team in Sri Lanka. They are absolutely phenomenal, and we're very proud to have them as part of our bigger team. Like, there's no them and us or anything like that. Like, they're all involved in the team meetings on Zoom. Like, all of my team work from home anyway, so it's no different. Like, you just ignore the postcode.
Yeah. I do feel like in the last 5 to 10 years, those perceptions are slowly changing.
Yeah.
Like, I think when I started, outsourcing was still a bit of a dirty word.
Yeah.
And now, you know, you only have to go to Aweber, for example. Everyone's extolling the values of outsourcing as a solution. And to certain problems, like, you know, so I think, as Tush rightly said, it's what has enabled us to get this far. And it's what's going to enable us to continue to punch above our weight going into the future. And, you know, us having our UK head office and those guys, you know, I think you ask, are we going to be an alternative to Iris? Give us time. You know, because
Iris have had a long time to get to where they are. It didn't happen overnight.
There's a big pool of dissatisfied Iris customers.
I doubt.
You know, God knows how many. And it's funny because those are the conversations that are actually inspiring us to take on more, to do more. Because, you know, I think their complacency enabled people like Capium to get a foothold in the market.
But if it wasn't for the likes of what they had pioneered, let's say, you know, the vision might not necessarily be there. We also look at that from an angle where, okay, what have they done right, and etc. And I can empathise because that's 30 years of effort and more than that, that they've built upon, and we're trying to obviously expedite that as quickly as possible within a cloud-based environment. You know, it's hard.
So, speaking of future and tech and stuff, like you've said, you've got your roadmap, you've got charity accounts coming out, which I think, Nick, you mentioned to Aaron and I at Accountex London was coming out this year, and there we go. Within a couple of days of recording this, it'll be out hopefully for you.
It's something that I'm really excited about. I shouldn't be, but I am.
But you say you shouldn't be, but then when I look at your online cloud-based competitors, so I do not believe Nomi do charity accounts.
No, they don't.
Taxfile have never touched them.
No.
Like, it is an underserved area.
Especially cloud.
Yeah.
So I think that's it's one of these things when you have a monkey in your back and you have it for such a long time and you're on the precipice of kind of getting off. That's the really exciting thing. But in our charities accounts, and something you'll be pleased about, Aaron, is it's not only just charity accounts, but it's also the future of what Capium is gonna be. Like, you guys speak highly of our accounts production product, and I'm grateful for that. But one of the feedback I have is the limitations of it has for formatting and customizing accounts. You know, the charity account is going to be fully customizable, where you can make a purple table if you want for certain things, like borders, headers, everything. That's going to be up to you as the accountant, and that's like the future of our accounts production product. So not only is it solving the charities problem, but for me, it's hopefully we can give to the community an insight into, for us, this is our next step.
This is kind of a beta toward what we're rolling out for everything.
Correct.
Love it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else? Any other big releases this year? I say this year. I mean, we're in September. Christmas isn't that yet. If you said no, I wouldn't be surprised.
Speak to Sanjay, our co-founder. He's pretty much said to us. Again, it's going to come out anyway, so it's not an issue. Time and Fees is out. If he had it his way, it'd be out now as well at the same time. But and after that, Bookkeeping is about to come out, followed by, what does he say, Corp Tax at some point next month or one month after. The market's not ready for everything in one go.
No.
Yeah.
And your marketing team's not ready either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and also we need to give it time for the product team to not only obviously test it, build out the literature and everything else behind it.
Train your support team to be able to support it.
Exactly. But to answer your question, Johann, everything that you see right now is also going through a brand new, whole new language. It's all been redeveloped as well in the process. So, and the idea is we've taken feedback, we've applied it.
I always think that kind of development's unsung, and it's undervalued. Like people are like,
I know. Believe me, it's cost
you've
a lot.
redone the UI. It's like, and what? It's like, everyone sings about new features and stuff. But actually, if by doing that UI, you save me 15 minutes on every set of accounts we do, that soon adds up.
Yeah.
That's more value than you launching a tool that I might use for 10 clients in the form of charity accounts, for example.
Yeah.
So actually, the UI is, or the new languages and stuff, that's equally, if not so, more so important.
Yeah, and the idea behind that was we've looking at going back to the question about machine learning, all of that. We built obviously everything that we've had so far. Cloud has obviously got its own sort of infancy and everything else, and it's what we built on before is no longer relevant going forward at some point as well. So we've had to look at that, and with the idea that machine learning needs to look at coming into it as well in the future.
So before the session started recording, we were chatting about HMRC. You guys aren't you've said it yourselves, you're not a big company, you've not got limitless pockets, you're not Sage printing its own money basically in medium enterprise, you're not QuickBooks in the US printing your own money. Like, you've got limited finite resources. Tell me to sod off, but how hard did it hit you when HMRC said we're delaying for 3 or 4 years for it to...
The hardest thing for me is communicating to our customers why we haven't delivered a certain feature when, Aaron, for example, saying, Nick, I need this. I'm like, actually, we're going to work on MTD. We're focusing on this, developing. I can't remember how many sessions I've had with our customers showcasing our initial MTD It's a product, getting their approval, trying to get through that, put in my time to get people to sign up to the project. And it's more, the biggest frustration is, what have we lost? Not in MTD It's a revenue in itself, because that's one issue.
Yeah.
But what have we lost with our product?
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
The other features.
If you didn't have that focus, what else? Where could you be today, I suppose? Yeah.
It's probably best part of a year. That we've gone, okay, it's definitely coming out. Let's double down on it. Let's invest. Let's be proactive. Let's engage.
We dropped a lot of stuff, primarily just to make sure
Yeah.
we were in that game.
It is an investment.
And you had no choice as well, because
had
if you'd have launched, if MTD launched without and you didn't have thing, then
We're
you'd have just
unviable.
it's hemorrhage clients.
Obviously, there's time and emotion invested, and you've put other features off. There's a financial investment, as you've made reference to. Do you guys feel that financial investment, it's not going to deliver its return quite as quickly as originally expected because of the delay, but is that financial investment still safe from the point, and what HMRC are wanting to deliver in the future? I mean, it's not a wasted investment for you guys. You're not going to have to kind of reinvest all over again. Or is it completely wasted and you've got to start again because of what I think it's really underestimated how damaging Like, there's accountants and bookkeepers out there cheering that MTDX has been delayed.
Yeah.
There's software companies out there that are, it's like, oh, we just put all this time and money in, like the big boys, but it's not going to hit their bottom line. But for software companies like yourselves, we've seen software companies go bust because of its decision on ITSA. We've seen redundancies.
Yeah.
If you had asked me that question 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it could have crippled us. Okay. You know, and it's only because obviously, you know, we've built up a data, sort of like a community and revenue lines, okay, which allow us to say, okay, fine, it's hurt and it's really left a dent, but okay, we can survive this and go through. Okay. I suppose that's, you've got to be thankful for it. Again, it kind of is a testament of where we've come to as well. But having said that, I think, I don't want to lose tangent here on this, but it could have gone completely the other way, and it could have had a massive impact on us. And we could have just gone under. And I think there are certain companies out there, not naming names, but you probably actually deal with certain software companies yourselves, where if something like that happened with certain revenue lines to levels that we have, if something like this happened, they would have gone under.
They would have been gone. Yeah.
Well, we've seen everything. We've seen people like Coconut and stuff that were banking everything on ITSA, and it's gone terribly wrong for them. So that investment of product development and kind of the products that you were getting ready, are they still viable under the new plans, or are you having to basically write that off and start from
I
scratch
think this is probably our third iteration.
Yeah.
MTD, it's a product.
Really?
because of changing requirements from HMRC?
Yeah,
And
APIs
also
changing.
where our product is as well, because what the product and the environment we would have built it in 18 months ago is different to what we're going to build it in now. So we've also got to start from scratch. But if I go back a step about the Making Tax Digital program in its entirety, it's also been a bit of a blessing for us.
Yeah.
I think the digitalization of tax has helped Capium, you know, in a weird way, you know. But
I suppose it's forced those people that are on spreadsheets and paper ledgers to actually adopt software. And when you can come in and be a ecosystem competitively priced, that, as you've said so far in this recording, like, you know, it's not necessarily right for everyone, but for those who it's right for, it's right. Then maybe it's forced them to look at solutions like yourself earlier than perhaps they might have.
I think first time we went to Accountex, there's a story here. We had a little small stand, you know, like just like one of those cubicles areas, and had a banner in the background. People were coming up to us, leads, and it was like, who are you? Okay, what do you do? And we were explaining this, and then we got to the question about, where's my data held? Remember going back to that same thing? Okay, same answer. Oh, you guys won't be around. Okay, you know, the same thing. The same people, I can still picture their faces right now. Okay, the following year would come back. Oh, you're still here? You know, that's not nice to hear as a startup at the time.
Definitely.
And
We're a cynical bunch.
it's brutal. But then it was just a case of, okay, all right, tell me more. Okay. By the third year, I think MTD was just announced.
Right.
Okay. And it became sort of a case that it was going to be mandated within a few years after that. The whole narrative completely changed, where I need Capium. It's like, oh, but if you sat them down and said, what do you need Capium for? I need cloud. They still didn't understand exactly what cloud was and what it does and how it can enable them in the future. But
They just knew that was a tick box they had to have
so
to make.
Client.
digitalization of taxes by MTD,
Yeah.
by HMRC did help us massively. And I'm not going to lie, it drove the narrative forward through the industry that actually we need to look at this going forward.
Can I ask a question about because we've had this exact conversation with a previous guest today of what Accountex is now. Like, we don't go in suits, we don't walk around in like. But back then, what was the landscape then? So what was it, 2013? Did you say, was it?
That was 14.
14.
Yeah.
What was the landscape then? Was it as big as then?
Compared to this year, other than the fact you guys had a huge stand this year and you were like with the big boys.
What do you
We
think?
try.
Because even you guys don't turn up in suits, do you? Now you've got that amazing football.
Oh,
thing.
the
We
boots.
love that.
I was thinking of wearing it.
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
It's a bit too hot outside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's not a typical accountant, right? The landscape's change, and just even the way we dress and everything else. But what was it back then? What was it like? Was it suits and ties? What was it like?
From accountants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 There's a hell of a lot more suits and ties walking in.
What do you think of, like, when you now stand there and look around Accountex this year, next
Yeah.
year and stuff, and you look around, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's come along the right way? It's going in the right direction? Do you think it's a better community? Do you think
Or do you
people
prefer it
lose
back then?
things?
So
Or
what
did you
about-
prefer them in suits and grumpy?
So 2 observations. I remember when I first went, I saw tax calc, and they were suited and booted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was just like, wow, are a reflection of our culture. We're casual, but we work very hard and dedicated. I don't think how you dress or look
Yeah.
should determine that.
Yeah.
So that was funny. Then the second one was, I'm not going to mention who, but they had a red shirt on, and it was like, "Don't worry, cloud's coming soon." Yeah, and they were literally a huge company.
Yeah.
And for me, that it was just almost like a big glass of confidence to be like. So before you were belittling it, and now it's just like you're trying to reassure your audience and your customers that it's coming.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are positive. But Accountex now, I think with Digital Accountancy Show on the horizon, it's such a contrast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%.
Digital Accountancy Show is more an event, an experience, and I think it's bringing some much needed limelight to, the accounting industry. Whereas Accountex is now just becoming a little bit more. It is what it is. I don't think it's changed.
It's a showcase, though.
Yeah.
But if you had asked to come to this podcast, for example, which probably wouldn't have even existed back in 2014, and we were here today, would I think about coming in a shirt and a tie or trousers? Yes, probably I would have.
Yeah.
Even though I was totally against
And
it.
you'd expect us to be it as well.
I
The
would have
expectation
expected it. Yeah, I would have expected
yeah.
you to have worn them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and again, tell us to do one if you want to. But one of your closest competitors has had a recent name change, a recent brand change, a recent
Neon. Neon colours.
What was your opinion on that when you first saw it? Because we were taken back. I mean,
Maybe Tush can't say too much, but I will. Look, I think as Tush highlighted before in our journey, when I think we had our first investment round, we went in on marketing, and we learned some lessons from it. And I think this time round, it's all gone into our product. Marketing will give you maybe one bright summer, but it won't lay the pipelines or the foundations for a viable long-term business. The fundamentals or maybe that product hasn't changed.
it's just a glossy new paint, isn't it?
There's obvious reasons. There must be obvious reasons why they've done it in their mind.
Yeah.
I think we probably had a conversation a couple of times like, oh, what if we rebranded as something totally different?
Yeah.
I can only put it down to the fact that there must be some sort of explanation from their aspect to have done that. And yeah.
That play to him, yeah.
Let's move on before. So going, my final question for you. I'm conscious we've had you for an hour already, but there's now a lot of these conferences.
Yeah.
That they're all brilliant. Like they've all got their strengths and weaknesses. We love going to them all because it means we get to chat to everyone and we get to build our relationships with you guys. And it's always, whenever we're going around, it's always like, right, let's make sure we see Capium, let's make sure we see QuickBooks, let's make sure we go and see these guys, those guys, like Cresco, and like we try and make sure we touch base with like the smaller, the startup ones that we've seen come in through COVID and stuff as well. But from a marketing, advertising, organisation point of view, which conference is the most fun for you guys to be there? But also, which one's doing you guys the most favours? Because next year, a lot of accountants have got a really tough choice next year because they're not all in the same privileged position where we can pull out of our firms. Like for the next 9 weeks, I think I'm spending 2 full weeks in my firm. The rest of the time, I'm out and about, road shows,
On tour, aren't we?
speaking, accounting conferences, and on holiday. Not everyone gets to do that. and we are forever grateful that we've got ourselves into that position. But next year, in March to April, we've got Digital Accounting Show, Accounting Web, Accountex. Like, there's going to be software vendors out there, especially the smaller ones, the new ones, the startups, that are going to be looking at going, well, that's not a small investment for any of them. Can we afford to do all of them? Which one should we do?
Can I take what you said earlier about Aaron? I don't know. I think, look, a couple of them were forced upon us. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
Not naming names. I don't necessarily agree it's the right approach for
Like us, you think they should be spread out throughout the year,
100%.
so everyone can attend as many of them as possible, and it benefits everyone.
Yeah, I think
This race to be the first.
Yeah.
Well, I think AWeb Live, the first 2 years,
They've had it a challenging time.
Yeah, they had it at a challenging time in a challenging area. You know, it was a really, as vendors and people who invested a lot of money for those shows, we didn't really understand the logic, but we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't. You know, in those scenarios. But
I mean, unfortunately, we would have been like first to be. Why is Capium not there? What's going on? What's happening? It's
seen
part of the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct. And I think those two shows, AWeb Live in Coventry, was where I think I really struggled because they were very head in the sand about the failure of it, you know, and how not well
in their
do.
defense, the first one,
COVID.
it was the first conference after COVID. Oh no, DAS wasn't it? First conference
In July.
It was like a day-long event.
Yeah.
But it was the first big one, and the weekend before Omnicon gets announced, everyone suddenly gets nervous. So I always wrote that off as a charitable.
Yeah.
That's not your fault. The next one still seemed very quiet.
Back deadline day as well, wasn't it? From
On a back deadline day.
There was something, wasn't there?
And also MTDX got cancelled. Like,
Yes,
That day. That conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And in Coventry, as you say, it's not the
I just didn't get
easiest place to get
didn't get the logic behind it. And as I think Tush said, we weren't forced, but as it's going back with damned if we do, damned if we don't. Like, I really do like going to Digital Accountancy Show because I think that's a space where accounting is going to go. You know,
not just because you relive your Ibiza days on that night out.
Look, we all were impressed. We all were impressed massively about the light show when we went there this year. I think it was but I like what they have a clear message. You know what they're trying to
distinctive
deliver.
Brand,
correct.
Distinctive audience.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's good because AccountX is AccountX. You know what you're getting on the tin. You know,
it's a bit like 10,000 people over 2 days is not a like. Hats off to Caroline and her team for achieving that, because that's not a small achievement to bring 10,000 accountants and software providers into one place over 2 days. That's incredible.
I think if I ask the question differently, which one can't we afford to miss?
Yes,
it would be AccountX in London.
Right,
that's one I think we have to go.
Yeah,
like, because I think in every accountant's calendar, that is the main one where the biggest cross section of accountants will go. Maybe the others might grow, but I think they're a few years behind that kind of the reach of that show.
And is that the one? So if you were talking to a brand new startup software, and they were saying, "Look, guys, just give us a tip. Which one should we? If we were to commit to one or none, is it damaging not to go to a conference if you've not done any conferences before? Or could you get away with it nowadays? Or is it now an expected thing that software companies will be at these conferences if they want credibility and visibility? And if so, which one is it Accountex that they need to go to?
Oh, okay. I think the
It's
thing
taken
about
an hour,
it is,
but we've got deep.
I think the thing about it is that you get different demographics at different shows. Like, if you look at DAS, a lot of it is all to do with app stacks and how you can connect, how it can connect into, you know, and we've had this conversation with Dan, you know, it's great because I can connect this with that, etc. And that's what it's about. Accountex is like okay, we're not the suit accountants anymore.
Yeah.
But it's attracting everybody. You're getting the stack.
Yeah.
You're
Very
getting the traditional
niche.
accountants, etc., that are turning up to the show. So I'm not sure, really. I'd probably say Accountex in my eyes, because you're attracting a bigger demographic, a larger demographic, and
Yeah.
obviously the footfall itself. You're probably paying a bit more. I don't, but at the end of the day, is it worthwhile?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
And there must be a crossover between Accountex and digital accounting shows anyway, or any.
Yeah,
of
there
them.
will be
right.
I think
What about from the point of view of if you guys would come into the market now with your product and you've not done any conferences before, is it a worthwhile investment for you to do it?
All three.
Or any of them?
Or any of them.
Or do you go, actually, you know what, guys, for the amount of money we spend on this stuff,
Yeah.
we'd rather spend it on the product at this early stage as a new startup?
Yeah,
Obviously, you guys have grown past this point.
I think we saw
Did you
some
say
new
that?
people at Accountex.
Yeah.
When I did do a round a few times, you did see new vendors that were
Yeah.
there. What do you think? I'm not sure. I think I'd rather spend it necessarily on actually building a digital marketing aspect going forward.
yes and no. Like, we still get people who come up to us and be like, "I've never heard of you before."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what these shows do give is exposure to some people who we don't reach.
Yep.
And Accountex and the other shows become a focal point, because we've always held our kind of meetings with our prospective clients over Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
Google Combine too, I think, digitally. So by meeting your customers face to face or prospects face to face, it just becomes an event in the calendar. But going back to your original question, now I think 'cause there's so many, it really depends on what your product is and what kind of audience you want to attract. Because I think if you want to be seen as being tech savvy, a solution for an accountant who has tech at the heart of their accountancy firm, you probably focus on digital accountancy show, because that is more of your maybe ideal customer. Whereas Accountex, it could be diluted.
But then, let's say if I'm a zero marketplace app, for example, it makes sense for me to be at ZeroCon,
Yeah, very
for
true.
example.
Very true.
So
But is that much more of a closed shop, though? Is that more difficult, would you say, to get into?
potentially,
We don't know.
He's
We're
not
just
tried.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, to get into the marketplace itself, you go
Yeah.
through quite a lot of compliance work and what have you. But if you're in, all of a sudden that opens up a different aspect. So if you'd asked that question, Johann, would I be at a show, including ZeroCon or QuickBooks, for example, maybe potentially I'd consider that, because actually I'm a stack that somebody needs to be seeing first and foremost.
So my final question is, we've established that going to these events seems like the right thing to do. It seems like we're on the same path there. Which one is debatable? Would you ever hold back a release or hold back a feature or keep something to one side to then announce and launch at these events? Or is it just get it out there as soon as possible and hope for the best?
If I would be lying if I said our product team aren't jumping up and down at the moment to get charities released in time for Accountex. Yeah. But I think it's good to have these
Do you think
events in
having
the
that
calendar.
product launch in line with a conference, does it get more conversations about you and more traction on the day? Or
I mean, it gives us something to talk about.
Gives us
We do
something to talk
appreciate
about,
if you can. That is great.
That's always enough consideration. I think it's also, to be in a marketplace, I think it's always good for your customers and people maybe looking at you to know that you're coming to the table with something new.
Yeah.
If your product, you've got to constantly seen to be innovating and evolving. So it is important, and they are landmarks in our calendars that don't crack the whip, but we push our team harder to make sure that those things that are maybe have been planned, that we want to get there and we want to showcase. They might not be finished, but we want to showcase because we can see, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, 500 people a day in Accountex, 1,000 over 2 days. And that level of visibility to your product is second to none.
yeah,
So if you do want to showcase something, then those are the places to do so.
Depends on the feature as well, right? We're probably victims of our own doing, really, because sometimes, let's say you've done the AML stuff, right, on the PM. We've not really shouted about that. We're talking about account X next week. You're just assuming that you're just going to slip that in. We've just, because it's not really been spoken about. But at the same time, the charity aspect, yeah, we're jumping up and down about it as well.
I suppose that's an opportunity for another plug.
Yeah, you carry on. Yeah, you carry on.
But I've got you, Tush. We're
Well,
changing.
you keep him around.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're changing some stuff in our practice management module because AML is just getting hotter and hotter and hotter.
Yeah.
And we just noticed some gaps that we believe is becoming just really important for accountants. So soon you'll be able to do a risk assessment in Capium where you can allocate risk levels, produce a document, allocate an AML officer. At the moment, we also just have an AML ID check. We're expanding that to a company check, credit check, international ID check.
Yeah.
Again, maybe trying to be that ecosystem, but essentially being like, we don't want our accountants to worry about, okay, my governing body is saying I need to do this.
Yeah.
I need to get another software. That again undermines our US, what we stand for. So hopefully, not for Account X, I don't think, but maybe towards the end of this month, early next, then that's when those AML changes will start rolling out and up and up. But there's too many other exciting things going on. They get lost in the background.
Just one more point on the conferences then. Would it work? We're just putting pie in the sky. At the moment, you guys are given the opportunity, or at least you can fight for the opportunity to go on stage and do thought leading and everything else. Is there a space in our industry now, the way that we're going, the hype we get for new features, because we've built a whole podcast over it, right? And there is definitely an appetite for something new, and I'm talking about it. Would there be room going forward in these conferences for an opportunity for you to just showcase new products? Like vendors get an opportunity to go on and say, right, this is Capium's time. They're going to talk about their new features, and boom, here's the new features. And
I think they started to do that.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. Didn't I see it at Accountex that didn't? Well, one of the vendors. I'm sure TaxCalc had a slot, didn't they? Or
Within their own.
was that within
section.
their own? Okay.
and maybe they're in their own section, and maybe there's a different time that you want people to. That could actually quite work, right? You're walking around the thing for this time.
Great idea. I mean, cost dependent.
I'm sure if you pay enough, yeah.
Yeah.
You could, but no, I agree. Like if these are events in which the leaders in the product space are coming to showcase their products, I think maybe having a dedicated stage in which you can show what you've done in the past
Spotlight
12 months,
stage, whatever, yeah.
correct, could be very insightful.
It's like a pitch.
Yeah.
You've got your sort of like 5-minute pitch
And it would be
slot.
Save our feet.
refreshing.
We could just set up camp at that stage.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
record for the whole day, and then not have to worry about knackering our feet.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Okay, any more questions?
No, you carry on.
Wonderful. All right. So first, you've already done a cracking job, but this is your chance to plug. So please plug. Like, where do people find you? What social elements do you want people to follow you on? What they should be excited about? Accountants will be been and gone, unfortunately, by the time this goes out. But plug away. This is your moment. You plug. If I was doing it on pots, it's that camera. If you've ever seen it.
Firstly, you can obviously reach us through our normal channels. So our telephone number is www.capium.com, for example, CAPIUM, that is. Other ways, you can find me on LinkedIn, my email address as well. The guys can give that out, tushir.patel@capium.com. Likewise for yourself.
What's exciting about Capium is, as I mentioned earlier, we've gone through the hard, we've churned the milk, and now it's turning into butter. And I really believe, and some of the customers are starting to see what our vision really is. And that is with the release of charity accounts with time and fees, but also being able to deploy new features like the AML compliance tools. We're getting a lot better at streamlining our product delivery. Our support has gone on leaps and bounds. You know, we've got a customer success onboarding team where you get your own dedicated account manager who should handhold you through, you know, your initial periods of using Capium. So, you know, I think some of the legacy vendors, what they forget is the human element. You know, we've got the product, but I know Johann or Aaron could contact me and I'll pick up the phone within an hour to talk to them. So not only do we have the product behind it, but we have the people in front of it. So check us out.
There's a whole new roadmap coming out, so obviously you're more than happy to share that with you and discuss that more in detail as well.
Amazing. Well, that's it. Well, thank you both of you for coming along. I love the fact we got 2 for the price of 1. I think that's
bargain.
We're talking about value today. That's the perfect value. So again, thank you so much for giving up your time. Thank you for being here. And we're gonna have you on at some point, right? Like, yeah, coming back on and hopefully with some more features that you can earmark and go from there. And that is it. That is the end of Ask the Accountant. We have cool friends, plural, on this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff as you're already doing. Don't forget to follow us and go from there. And we will be with you with a brand new We Have Cool Friends very soon. Bye for now.